First things first, what's the purpose of your fence? In our case, we had 2 German Shepherd dogs, so we knew the height was pretty important. I feel like a German Shepherd could jump over a 4-foot fence, so we chose a 5-foot fence. And from reading online, a lot of people even go with 6 foot, but 6 foot was very expensive. 5 foot was more economical and would work for us, so that's what we went with. We knew we wanted support at the bottom, and with this chain link fence, you can actually run wire, which I'll go over. You probably saw it in the previous clip. There's a black wire running at the bottom, and that serves as a support in case they get a little bit too crazy when they're playing. They can't run through the bottom of the fence because a lot of chain link fences can flex out, and that wire prevents this. But like I said, we'll go over it again in a minute. Just figure out what the purpose of your fence is before you get into any kind of planning, or end up buying a bunch of things and get started and realize, oh, this is too short, or this is too tall, or this is not the right material. Just do some planning beforehand. Let's go on to step 2. Second, you want to figure out how big you want your fence to be. Luckily, in my case, I didn't have to worry about property lines or neighbors or anything like that. But if you're fencing in your backyard, you want to make sure you have your property surveyed, make sure you go by your property stakes. You want to make sure you talk with your neighbors and make sure they're cool with it. You want to check local rules and make sure you don't have to go so many feet from the property line. There's a lot of things to think about. Like I said, luckily, in my case, I didn't have to worry about that. I knew that I wanted an area big enough for the dogs to be able to play in. It ended up being like right at 1/3 of an acre that we fenced in, so that's perfect for them. Keep in mind that the chain link fabric rolls come in 50-foot sections. So if your yard's big enough, go with 50-foot increments so you don't have a lot of waste. I'm real big on not wasting things if I can, and we didn't have hardly any waste, and I'll go over that stuff later. I think we had like 7 or 8 feet of waste, which is awesome. But let's figure out, measure everything out. You can use tape measures, you can walk it off. I use Google Maps all the time. Google Maps is not exact, but it's really close. And I actually just use a measuring wheel, but a lot of people don't have that sitting around, so you have a few options to go with. I'll go over next how I laid out my fence. First, what I did was I went on Google Maps, and if you type your address in, you can pull like an overhead view, like a satellite view of your house. And it's really nice, especially so you can get an idea, like if your neighbors have a fence that you like the size of. You can kind of, if you right click, you can go to measure, and you can click measure, and then you can actually draw lines in the Google Maps, and it'll show you exactly, well, not exactly, it's really close though. It'll show you about the size of their fence, or you can get an idea of what it'll look like on your property. But that's what I did first. And then I went outside and I kind of measured everything out and drew it on this grid paper. The reason it's really good to do that is so you can kind of get an idea of where you want your terminal post and line post to be. And it's easier to say 1, 2, 3, 4 than to try to guess in your head about how many posts or count in your head, especially when you got this much stuff going on. It's easier to just have something visual so you can keep looking at it, especially when you're ordering stuff. I ordered all my stuff online, so it was easy to go back and say, hey, I need this many, terminal posts. I needed this many tension bands, or this many tension bars, or the post on the top. I mean, it's just easier to draw it out and look at it. So I went on Google Maps, figured that out, and then I went and drew it. And then I actually went out and walked it in my yard to make sure that that was going to be sufficient for me. And as you see, I kept it within like the 50-foot increment marks, so it'll be right at 400 feet. Those rolls, I'm gonna give you some advice right here. I think you need to probably stick with those rolls. 9 of them come to a pallet. Okay, if you only need 6, still get 9 and just take the 3 back to the store if you can do that, because I have seen too many times to where you get 6 and the people don't put them on a pallet right, and the fence gets all bent up and screwed up, and then you have to deal with trying to straighten it and everything. It's easier to just get a pallet that's strapped together, never been tampered with from the factory. It's coming straight from the factory like that. Nobody's taken it off and screwed it up or nothing like that. So let's go on to the next step and making sure everything's square. To make sure that your fence is square with your building or house or whatever, you're going to be using something called the 3-4-5 method. And what that is, it makes a triangle, and the triangle goes like that, and you'll know everything's square. So right here, for example, and you can use 3 tape measures. You can cut a piece of stick, a piece of pipe, whatever you need to do to make sure you got 3 foot, 4 foot, and 5 foot. Does that make sense? Because that makes the triangle, right? So you can get a piece that's 3 foot here, get a piece that's 4 foot here, And between those two, if it's square, it should be 5 feet. What I did to make sure, you know, I was definitely square, instead of 3, 4, 5, I did 6, 8, 10. And that would be, you got 6 feet long, 8 feet long, and then between those two should be 10 feet if this is square. And I you know, obviously checked it here to make sure that this was square. And then I went on the other side of the house because I wanted it square with that as well. And I pretty much did that. So that's how I got my square. After I figured out kind of where everything would be square, I got a piece of rebar and I put it in the ground right there where that post is, as close to the building as I can, where I want my fence post to be. And I got a mason string and ran it all the way down the distance that I wanted it to stop. I ran another rebar. I tied this mason's line to that rebar down there, wrapped it around it, went that way all the way to the corner, put another rebar, wrapped my mason's line around that, ran it there, and that gives me an idea of the outline of my fence. And now that the string is up and tight, what I can do is measure everything and make sure my measurements are going to match what's on that paper before I go spending a bunch of money and ordering things. You know, shipping adds up, so you want to make one order if possible. But that's what I did. I got my measurements right, and I was able to, you know, that the mason's line was up. I could double check the square of everything, and if I wanted to modify anything, or for example, I didn't know about this gate. I'm going to explain. This is going to save you a lot of money if you don't care about the way that looks. I think it saved about, you know, $500 and something doing this type of gate versus a aluminum chain link gate, but we'll go over that. As I said, I wasn't really sure, but having the mason's line out and everything staked out, it just gave me a better idea of what I was looking at. And you know, I let the wife come out here and look at it, and she's like, well, I want it a little bit bigger. And then, you know, we extended it or did whatever we had to do before I spent the money. So definitely good to have something visual in front of you before you start. Now that you got everything staked out, you want to call 811, or you may want to call 811 before you start driving rebar in the ground. But I put that wire in the ground and I knew where it was, so I don't have to worry about that. And I made a video on that if you're interested, so go check it out, of me digging the trenches and running the wire. But if you're uncomfortable, call 811. If you're comfortable and know where the wire is, go ahead and mark everything out, and then you can save 811 some time, because see, we have a fair amount of property, and when 811 comes out here, they have to mark, I don't even know, it's a couple thousand feet of stuff. But where I already had it marked, I put in the notes for them, hey, I'm got it staked out where I'm going to be putting my fence. You guys don't need to waste an hour of your time marking the whole property. You can just mark right there, because my power line runs like there, and then on the back of the building, my wife's power, and then the power I have coming to this building, and also our internet cable runs right there. So I said I only need those two areas marked. The dude came out here, I can't even remember what I was doing. Oh yeah, I was building a trampoline after a storm came and destroyed our old one. But I was out here building a trampoline. He came up and he's like, dude, thank you so much. He's like, I thought I was gonna be here for a long time, but I read the notes. I was like, all right, so once everything's marked, once you got everything figured out, it's time to start ordering stuff. The website that I bought all of my fittings from, you know, the bands, the tension bars, the top caps, the end caps, all of that stuff, the website, and I'm not sponsored or anything. I'm just trying to save you guys a ton of, I'm talking about a ton of money, okay? Chainlinkfittings.com, and I'll put that in the description below. The bands, for example, at my local Lowe's are almost $4 a piece. Like the bands that, you know, the tension bands that hold the tension bar, they were almost $4 a piece. On this website, they were like $1 a piece. When you're ordering a lot of these things, $3 adds up really fast. The caps were cheaper. The bolts were cheaper. Matter of fact, I ordered everything from that website except for the top rails, the terminal post, and the line post, and the fabric. Because those were like big items. You'd have to pay ton for shipping, ordering that stuff online. I actually called a couple local places, and I got very lucky. This one lady, she told me, she said, look, if you're doing this for yourself, you're doing this to try to save some money, she said, go to Lowe's. I was like, what? I was like, why would you tell me that? She said, go to Lowe's, you're gonna save a lot of money. Well, not a lot of money, but you know, if you get the credit card, everything, you get 5% off, and sometimes they'll even send you a 10% off coupon. You know, but that doesn't work toward contractor items and all that, like bulk items. But anyways, she told me that, and she was not lying, you know, based on their prices versus like Lowe's and Home Depot prices. And I ended up going with Lowe's because Lowe's was cheaper. But Lowe's for the bigger items, like I said, for the top rails, terminal post, line post, and the fabric, it was a lot cheaper going that route. But I ordered all my fittings and bands and bolts and all that type of stuff off of the chainlinkfittings.com. It saved me a ton of money. You do have to pay for shipping, but if you compare cost, it's not even remotely close to what you pay if you went to Lowe's. I mean, not even, I mean, I want to say we saved like $400 or $500 just by getting the fittings from them instead of going to Lowe's or something. So that's, it's pretty cool. You need to check them out for sure. Kind of go over what each of these bands are and what things are called so you can kind of Google them if you're trying to figure your fence out. I figured it'll just kind of make more sense to you if I do that, because I didn't know what any of this stuff was until I started researching and ordering it. So this big post is called a terminal post. You only have these at the ends, or if you have a horribly steep incline, you know, like if you do, I don't have anything like that on my property, so I'm not going over this. But if you get a huge dip, like let's say where I'm standing at, 5 foot over, there's like a 4 foot dip, you're gonna have to put 2 of these because you're gonna have to offset your cut or make like an offset cut in your fabric. I don't know anything about that. I didn't do that on this fence, but that's something to look out for. But in my case, these terminal posts go at each end of my runs. These posts are bigger. This is called a line post. It's a lot smaller. These line posts go in between your terminal post. This is called a top loop cap. They sit on top of your line post and your rail runs through them. That's what, you know, kind of locks your rail in and holds it in place. This is your top rail. This is called a brace band. You only use one of these at the top, and I use one at the bottom because of this wire right here. You see the difference between this brace band and this tension band is the shape. I don't know how well you can see that, but the brace band goes around and stops in the center there. The tension band loops around and goes straight right there, and it's to hold the tension bar. Tension band, tension bar. And this is called an offset end cap. See how it's offset? There's a reason for that, and I'll show you that in a second. And this is just a top cap. I think I went over everything, and that's a tension bar. And obviously you need bolts. Spacing does matter with these because, well, actually spacing and quantity, you don't want to really skimp out on these. I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tension bands, and you can use 4 on a 5 foot fence. The reason I used 5 is because when you start putting tension on this thing, if I only had 4, this bar will start bending and it'll kind of look crappy. It's kind of bent. You can see it right there. In person, it's not that bad. In person, you can barely notice it, but you can pick it up in this camera, and that's probably a good thing, so you'll get the idea of what I'm talking about. This right here is called tension wire. You get it in big rolls, and you put your brace band at the bottom, run it through the bottom of that bolt, and you can make a couple wraps with some pliers and lock it in. Just forgot, these are called hog rings. See that little ring that I've attached my wire to? And these are called fence ties. Where's the other one? There's another one right there. There's another one right there. Those are called fence ties. That's what you attach your chain link mesh to your rails. Hope everything's making sense so far. I think it is. It's pretty simple. It's not as complicated as it looks. Since you called 811, you got all your utilities marked, you got your fence laid out, you know where it's going to be, and you've got everything ordered, it's time to start digging, or pounding, or both. What I mean by that is, from my observations, I've seen either people use auger and dig a hole and put their post in concrete, or you can get caps that you put on the top of the post. You can use a sledgehammer to beat the post to the ground, or they use a gas-powered hammer, or you can do both. What I did was use, I have a 12-inch auger for my tractor. It's 12 inches diameter. I dug the holes 1 foot deep, and then I used my gas-powered hammer to drive the post in 1 foot deep. So I got a 1 foot hole, I drove the post 1 foot deep in the ground. The reason I did that is the post will stay perfectly level after I've hammered them in the ground a foot, and then I went back in each hole, most of the holes, not the one with the 6x6. I put a lot of concrete in that one, but in all the holes except for that one, I used one 80-pound bag of concrete, and that filled it up to about that high from the actual top of the ground. And I haven't done this yet. My wife's on my butt about it, so it's gonna be done soon, I promise. I gotta fill those in with dirt because I was gonna really do concrete and just taper, you know, away from the poles, but she wanted the dirt, and to make the wife happy, that's what I'm gonna do. But I'll show you my auger, and I'll show you my gas-powered hammer. Like I said, if you don't want to spend the money, you can rent a hammer. You can use a sledgehammer. You can rent an auger, just however you want to do it. In my case, I had a 5-foot fence. I got 7-foot poles. Your area may differ because your frost line or whatever conditions you have, bad soil, whatever. I have hard clay. It is like driving something into concrete. So I didn't have to worry about that. With the 1 foot I pounded into the ground and 1 feet of concrete, I think I'll be 100% okay. But like I said, that's in your local area. You have to research. I can't help you out there. This is something you have to figure out on your own. I'll go show you the auger I used and the hammer I used. Then we'll get into how I did that. This is the gas-powered hammer I was talking about. It's got a couple different guides in it. It's got the actual anvil there. You clip onto that. This thing's been a real lifesaver. I'm not sure of the brand. Sportsman Series. I don't know if that's the brand. That's the only marking I saw on it. But let me tell you, this thing, I've had it for about 5 years now, and it has been amazing. I've not had any problems with it. Normally on these Chinese units, as long as you do your maintenance, keep everything clean, keep clean gas in it, on mechanical things like that, make sure nothing's dry, make sure everything's greased and oiled like it should be. These things will last a long time. I mean, I've used this thing to drive in 10-foot sticks of rebar all day on like retaining wall jobs and stuff. This thing will take a piece of rebar, you know, big piece of rebar, drive it all the way 10 feet down in the ground with no problem. I drove all those fence posts with it a foot in the ground, no problem. Matter of fact, it was kind of too fast. I had to baby the throttle to make sure it didn't drive it in too fast. This thing works great. So you can probably rent these if you don't want to buy it. I think I paid like $284. So it was on sale at that price. It was $280 something. I think regularly it was like $350 or something, but definitely worth it if you're going to be using a sledgehammer a lot, because this beats the heck out of using the sledgehammer. And like I said, I've had this for about 5 years and never had an issue with it. I'm sure you can probably rent something like this if you don't want to spend that money on, you know, if you're only going to be using this like one time, you might as well rent it. But that's the gas-powered hammer if you've never seen one. Here's the auger I used. I used it on the back of my tractor. It's a 12-inch auger. It's pretty cool. You can still see the paint that I marked, the yellow paint right there. I put that as a 1 foot mark from the bottom of that to there. It's 1 foot. So that way I knew where to stop to make sure my hole was 1 foot deep. You can rent these as well if you have a tractor, or you should be able to. The local places I have, you can rent them. You can also get manual ones. You can also have lots of fun and get a post hole digger. I did have to use a post hole digger on all those holes, because as you know, if you've ever used one of these, it does not clean the hole out perfectly. A lot falls back down in it. So what I did, I went around, drilled all my holes, and I got post hole diggers, and I just cleaned the soft stuff out of the hole. So let's pretend that my mason's line is still here. Remember in the beginning of the video, I talked about having a rebar there, mason's line, rebar here, mason's line, rebar there, and so on. So I went up through here. I have a really long tape measure. It's like 300 feet. I laid it out. You can use a regular tape measure too. I actually did use that to double check everything, but what I did was I used the calculator, measure my distance between there and there, use my calculator to see what my spacing needs to be, and then went up through here, made marks with my shovel where I needed to dig my hole. And then I came down through here. I left my mason's line in place, and I had my dad come, pull the line out of the way. I would dig the hole, then he would let go of it, go back in place. And we walk down here, you know, because I've got my shovel I've already made on my mark, so I knew where to put my digger or my auger. Grab the line, he'd move it out of the way, I'd dig the hole. And the reason we did that, because it's a lot easier to just leave that mason's line in place, because you're going to have to end up putting it back up anyway to make sure you get your posts in the exact same spot. But I moved that out of the way, dug the holes, and then next pounded the holes into the ground. Since my mason's line is good and tight all the way up through there, all I had to do was get this post about the center of that hole, put it up against my mason's line, and then I have a post level. I'll show you that when I walk back up to my shop. I put a post level on it, got him to hold the post level. You're going to need 2 people for this. You can't, I mean, you could do it by yourself, but it's very difficult. Put a post level on this post, hold it in the center of that hole, hold it against my mason's line that's there, using my gas-powered hammer, and drive it down. Now, I knew that I wanted 5 feet sticking out of this hole. So what I did was get a piece of plywood, lay it across there, you know, so it's dead level with the ground. And then I got a piece of PVC pipe and cut it off at 5 feet. It's actually supposed to be 62 inches, or 58 inches for these, sorry. 58 inches for these, because you want them 2 inches below 60. You want them 2 inches below this. And 62 for this, you want it 2 inches higher. This is higher, so it'll be level with that. And that's lower, so your post, your top post can sit on top of it. But anyways, 58 inch was my post here. Had it sit on top of that plywood, and I would just drive it down until it met with the top of that post. And I knew the height was right, and I knew the level was right because he was holding the post level and holding the post while I was driving it. Did the same thing for this one, but as I said, these end posts, terminal posts, need to be 62 inches. I would put my plywood there, and I had another piece of pipe that was cut 62 inches, and I'll hold it here and drive it down. I haven't tapped these down because I just finished this fence not long ago, so don't laugh at my messed up caps. But this is 62 inches, and I did the same thing. He held the level, made sure it was perfectly level. He held the post. I drove the post until it matched the top of that pipe. This is a post level. I'll put this as a link in the, any of the tools I mentioned today, I'll try to put them a link in the description so you don't have to go searching around. You can just find exactly what I was talking about. But this is the piece of post that I cut off. Those 2 posts right there, I had to cut those off a bit because the foundation to my shop and the foundation to my house came out about 2 feet. So I had to cut them off about that much and use a little bit extra concrete. Anyways, that's where this piece of fence came from. But this is a post level. This is a rubber band on it. It's got where you can just, let's see if I can, yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's hard to look at a camera and do this at the same time. But have my dad hold this while I hammer the things in the ground. Very handy, way cheaper on Amazon. I think I found a 2-pack of these. They got magnets in them and rubber band. 2-pack was like $7.99 at Lowe's or our local hardware stores. One was $7.99. So, I'll link in the description. Now that you've got all your posts driven in the ground, they're ready for concrete, if you decide to go that route. I had it figured out, and it'll be different for you if you use a different size auger, but I used a 12-inch auger, so I had it figured up to use one 80-pound bag per post, and I think I used 4 on that 6x6 post. That's where the gate is. I'll go over that in a second. I dug that hole 3 feet because it was going to be 5 foot high, but anyways, I used 80-pound bags of concrete. See my concrete floor? I did this with my Harbor Freight mixer. I used my Harbor Freight mixer to mix this concrete. I wouldn't advise on mixing that much concrete with a wheelbarrow by hand. That would be miserable. It would take a very long time. I would recommend either renting or buying a Harbor Freight concrete mixer. Well, not a Harbor Freight one, but any kind of concrete mixer. It doesn't have to be Harbor Freight. Just I can vouch for the Harbor Freight one. Check out my video on this pad. See how big this shop is. I built this whole pad with the Harbor Freight concrete mixer using bagged concrete. I used 830 of those bags to make this pad. Anyways, not what this is about. Next, the holes are ready for concrete. Once you got them pounded in the ground, they're not going to go anywhere. You don't have to worry about them wobbling. Mix the concrete, pour them in the holes, double check your level. I waited 2 days, and then I started building my fence. Now, I have 2 spots that you may or may not have to worry about, but I had to deal with doubling these poles up. I'm sure some of you were wondering about that. The foundation to my building came out to like right behind this post right here. So what I did, I dug all the dirt out from around, you know, where I could get straight to the foundation, and I pounded this post in the ground like normal, right? Okay, got it pounded in, and then what I did was cut this post off to where it would match the height of this one. Okay, and then I used these bands to hold this one in place. Then I poured everything and filled it in with concrete, and now this is good and sturdy. That's not going to move. I'll go to the other side of the house and show you what I did over there. You're just going to probably have to get creative. I looked online for a while on what people do about this, and I couldn't find anything, so I just kind of came up with this because, you know, the dog can't fit through that little gap. But I'll go to the other side and show you what I came up with over there. Here, you can see the foundation comes out a really long way. I'm guessing it's like that all the way up. What I ended up doing was, like I said, the same thing. I dug all the dirt out to the foundation where these 6x6s are sitting. And right there, this post is driven in like normal. And what I did was put this band right here, and I have a screw and I used 2 nuts as spacers. You can see that pretty good. I did it there, and then I did it again at the bottom. So this post is in the ground good. I cut these off to match the top of it. Used these 2 screws to hold everything in place, and then I concreted around. And these 6x6s are bolted together. They're definitely not going to come apart. This is very sturdy. It's not going to be moving anytime soon. But plan is, once this dries out, I'm going to paint it black, and you won't really be able to tell anything. I also, not sure if you can see the gap, but I don't have it touching the house. It's maybe 1/8 of an inch away for bugs and things like that. But that's what I did there. It doesn't look the best, but I didn't want to deal with drilling into my house foundation. I didn't think that was much of a good idea, so this is what I came up with. That might be something you guys could comment on if you have anything like this around your house, what you did or what you've seen done in the past. That would be good information to know. When I was talking about this, I completely forgot that it was on the back of this. And this is the Google Map kind of view of my house. And that was where I drew out the fence. And that's about exactly where it was going to be. It's a very old picture, you can tell. But that's where the fence is going to be. And what was cool about this, I could write down everything that I needed. 400 feet of fabric, terminal posts, line post caps, and so on and so forth. And I could kind of figure out exactly what I needed. I ordered actually more than what I needed for most of this. This is just like the bare minimum, if that makes sense. But I ordered more than this just because, like, on the Lowe's websites, you get bulk discounts. And as I was explaining a while ago about the fabric, if you order 9, that comes to a pallet. So I got 450 feet of that instead of 400. And the concrete, I obviously got some left over, and that's for another project that I got going on. See, I only needed 60, but I ordered 84. So, but anyways, that's what the overhead view is going to look like. And just made it a lot easier to be able to look at this. All right, guys. The reason I keep coming right here is because this building is blocking the wind. It's really windy today, and I want you to be able to understand what I'm saying. So now that all your posts are set in concrete and everything's ready to go, you're ready to put your fabric up. Okay. Yet, you're going to have somebody to hold this roll of fabric because it's not very light. I mean, it's not heavy, but it's heavy enough to where you need 2 people to have one hold the fabric, and it's in a roll, obviously. You get your end, and you want to go ahead. It's probably a good idea if you want to go ahead and get all your bands just slid down the bottom so you can just pick them up and slide it where it needs to be. But get them to hold the fabric in place. Then you get your tension bar, and you literally just drop it straight down through there like so. You fasten it in. You don't want to, I didn't fool with getting these tight yet. I just got it to where it kind of held everything in place. Okay. So I got these held in place, and then I stretched the fabric out. So imagine, let's just walk over here. Instead of imagining, you can just see. So we've got somebody holding the fabric up, got the tension bar through it, got the tension bar through the bands, got the bands tightened down. Imagine you got a big roll of fabric here. Just roll that stuff out all the way down through there and lay it on the ground. So you've got the stuff laid on the ground. You want to try to, without any tools or anything, just kind of pull it out, stretch as much of the tension out as you can get. Okay, because this stuff stretches good. It'll surprise you. It stretches a fair amount. Just by shaking it and working the looseness out of it on the ground. Then what you do, this is called a banana clip. Okay, I'll put the link in the description for this as well. But this is called a banana clip. These things are awesome. You need to have this. I mean, we needed them for sure. I got a 5-pack, and a 5-pack allowed us to do 120 some odd feet. I think it was 120 something feet. Yeah, that's about what it was. If you're going to be doing anything longer than that, I would definitely recommend getting more of these, because we were on the edge of needing more with 120 feet. So if you go longer than that, get more than these. What these do, once you got this end terminated, you got the stuff stretched out on the ground and fairly tight. Well, you don't want it tight. You'll understand what I'm saying once you start doing this, but just get the looseness worked out of it and get it stretched out. You want to come back to your terminated end and have someone go down a little bit further and start picking it up, and you pick it up as well, the fabric. And once you get the fabric picked up, you got the terminated end down here, so it's obviously going to be kind of picked up. What you want to do is get your banana clip, slide it in right there, and you know what that's going to do? That's going to hold the fence in place so that you can continue moving on down the line, and then by the time you get to the end, you can terminate it down there. Now, one thing you want to be careful of on these. Like I said, the wind's picking up right now. But when you get these top posts on, see right here where it terminates, you do not want to put this before that, because if you're trying to pull on it, this thing might get hung up and you'll think you got it tight, but it's just hung up right here. You want to get it a little bit after, so when you're pulling that with a tension, it has room to slide on this top rail. You understand what I mean when you start doing this, but you don't want this to get hung up on that. You want it to be able to slide. And after you get everything, all the tension out that you can by hand, you want to hook this thing. This is called a fence stretcher. You can use this for all kinds of stuff. You can make one, but I got this fairly affordable, and I didn't really have a lot of time to spend on making one. I've seen people online get like 2x6s or 2x4s and put those hook bolts in it and all that stuff, but I think this was like $20-something. I ordered this off of the chainlinkfittings.com, and it was cheaper there than anywhere. I'll link it in the description so you can take a look at it as well as that. But so you got your terminated end, you're down here on your loose end, you got your banana clip holding the fence up. What you do, you don't want to use that tension band. You want to get like a sacrificial tension band or tension bar that you don't mind getting kind of scratched up and bent up. You run your tension bar. What we did was go after, okay? Sometimes we had to go before, but what we did was pull some chain link past this post, and we would hook it in. This is just for an example I'm showing you. We'd hook it in. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, but we would hook it in there. I can't do it with one. Yeah, I did. Hook it in there like that. See, it's on your tension band. And like I said, you don't want to use that tension bar. You want to use one that's like a sacrificial that you don't mind getting bent up, and just use that same one over and over again. But like I said, we went past this. So we had our tension bar out here, and all this was out here, so that we could pull tension on it and then run this bar in and get everything snug. And then what we did was cut the excess off out here so that this was in place and we didn't have to worry about screwing anything up on the inside. That's just what we did. You can do it however suits you. But I hooked a come along. You can hook a winch or a come along or something. We used the come along because it's more controlled, in my opinion. I got a winch on my UTV, but what I did was hook the come along to that and then hook it to my UTV. I mean, you don't have to use a UTV. You can use anything stationary that has enough, weight to hold this, where you can tension it. And you don't want this stuff stupid tight, because what I found is the more you tension it, the stuff will shrink, because the further you go that way, the stuff collapses on itself. So you want it to be where you can get two hands. I can't use two hands because I'm holding the camera, but you can just see I'm squeezing pretty hard, and it's just barely like that. You don't want it to be super tight to where it's shrinking your fence, but you don't want it to be loose either, because if it was loose, you'd be able to pull out on it pretty good way. See, I can't really pull out on it that much. Between those two, everything's staying in place. And I also forgot the step of the top rails. It's pretty simple. Like, once you got your post up and got them concreted, you literally just slide these in a couple inches down, where these are 62 inches, right? You go down a couple inches, hook this in. You see how that's facing down like that? Let me show you why that one's facing down. All right, as you see, this one is facing down as well. Well, to keep it level, see, these are pretty level. Look at that one, it's facing up. And the band's facing down, the band on top makes it for that difference. So everything's centered just like that. So you want to pay attention to what you're doing here. Like I said, that's 62 inches. This fabric is 60 inches. And you want that about 2 inches below. You kind of see what I'm talking about. Once you start, if you take this project on, you'll kind of see exactly what I'm talking about. And you want these, I've seen people make these level with the pipe, but I like it kind of like halfway over, like a half, I think they call them diamonds. I like it halfway in because it just looks better to me, and it's easier to wrap these wires around it where it's not going to come out. So you got your top post on, you got your fabric fastened down there, tension down here. You literally just slide this band in to put your bolts past this, and you can count the diamonds or whatever. In my case, I went at the top of this, and then I went down 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. I have this right here, and the reason I made this wire this height because the dogs, a lot of people put it all the way down here, and that's because humans, their feet would be more likely to kick there than way up here. But where I have German Shepherds, their little legs, about the middle of their legs are right here. So if they play onto it, their whole body's gonna hit this, and it won't damage the fence. But like I said, I did about every 4, and on these, to fasten this to it, I did it every 9, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For some reason, that was 10. I guess that was the end if I started up there or something. I don't know. But anyways, I was supposed to do them every 9. And then here, I just did it at the top, in the middle, and then down at the bottom. And then I fastened there. You kind of get the idea. You can kind of go crazy on those if you want to, because it doesn't hurt to put too many, because all you're doing is holding the fabric to the metal better, or to the post better. But like I said, got everything tensioned, got the rails there, got everything bolted down. Now you can just imagine that there's still a little bit of chain link fence here, because like I said, we went out beyond it, so we wouldn't damage the fence that you're going to see. And I just got some side cutters and just went down through there and snipped out what I could. These bands were holding it, so see, normally you can just snip the top and snip the bottom and just twist the stuff out, but you couldn't because of where these bands were. So I had to do some cutting and pulling. It wasn't that big of a deal. But what happens if you're on a run like this? And then remember before I said these are only 50 feet long. What happens if you got to run about 125 feet long? What would you do then? It's really simple. Each one of those rolls, the 50-foot rolls that you get, come with one of these. And I'm sure you can put two and two together and figure out what this is for. So you get your 50-foot roll. Let's say you've got it all the way extended out laying on the ground. Okay, let's say you need another 50-foot roll. So all you do is literally get your other 50-foot roll, get the end of it. Okay, we'll pretend this is two 50-foot rolls. You want to match this up with this. You want to match the tops up, okay? And you literally get this piece that comes with the roll. This piece right here. Oh gosh, I just threw it on the ground. That's not going to show you much, is it? And you literally get it started, and you just, you rotate it clockwise, and it will literally walk itself down. Each time you turn it clockwise, and it'll literally walk itself in, walk itself in. And as long as you have those two pieces of fence laying right up next to each other, you can almost do it by yourself. Where this is a 5-foot section, I had to get my dad to kind of hold the end together. So while I was twisting it, it was kind of, going zigzagging where it's supposed to go. It's real simple. I didn't even understand that's how this worked, but that's how it works. And you can't even tell. Once you've done it, you can walk through anywhere on this fence and you could not tell where we joined it. And we had to join it once on that one, I think 3 times on that one, because we had 2 50-foot rolls and then some left over or something. I don't know. Anyways, we joined it about 5 or 6 different times. And then over there on that 10-foot section that I showed you, yeah, you can see that. I didn't want to open that new roll up. I wanted to take it back and get my money back. So we just used some scraps and put the scraps together on that one. So I think we actually have 3 joined together on that one over there, and you can't tell. And anyways, once you see how the ends straight like that, you get it, and you literally run it through that, and you just fold it back on there. Then you go to the bottom and do the same thing. You can never tell. If you do the tension wire, a lot of people don't do the tension wire, but if you do the tension wire, you probably want to do that before you get the fabric on. You can do it after, but it would just be easier if you did it, before you put the fabric on, because it's not in the way. What I did, you can buy a tool for this, but what I did was get a piece of pipe, and I'll show you that in a second. And you probably want to watch a detailed video that shows you how to do this, because I've already done it. But you run your tension wire through that bolt, leave you about, like maybe 8 inches hanging out. You get your pipe, and it's got a hole drilled in it. You run that wire through that pipe, and it's like a T-bar. And you rotate that clockwise toward your fence. So if you stand on the other side, it'll be clockwise. If you're standing here, well, it'd still be clockwise. Never mind. So you rotate it clockwise. So the wire will wrap around the pipe, and it will tension this stuff. And you want it really good and tight. As tight as you can get it. You can break it. I didn't break any, but I've seen a lot of people were snapping this stuff. So something to look out for. You don't want to get it too tight. You want to be kind of careful. But roll it around the wire, and then when you go to, I roll it around the pipe, and then when you go to rotate it counterclockwise, this wire will stay tensioned because this stuff's stiff. It's real stiff. You can get your pipe out of there. I just got some Needlenose pliers. You can use Linemans Pliers. I found that Needlenose, a good thick set of Needlenose pliers, I use Klein's, I'll link them too, was easier to, you know, run this around. I tried to use my fingers, but after you've done this many ties and all this stuff, your hands begin to hurt really bad. You know, it wears you out, or wears your hands out anyway. Rotate that around a couple times, snip it off, and you're good to go. And like I said, you can buy this tool, but I just use, this is an old jack handle. I always keep random stuff like this around. This is an old jack handle. This is a piece of pipe. I drilled, see that hole right there? This is a small hole. You run your wire through this. So imagine your wire's running through this and it's against the fence pole, right? Well, I drilled a big hole right here that this can go through. So you got your wire in through and it's against the post. You literally just turn it clockwise and that pulls or tensions the wire. And you just keep turning it until it's tensioned enough, and then you turn it back and it'll stay tensioned because that wire is so thick and stiff. It'll stay in place, and you can just get this out of the way, wrap it around with your Needlenose pliers or Linemans pliers or fingers if you got that in you, and snip it off. All right, so we ran over, getting everything square, getting the mason's line set up, getting our holes dug, getting our posts in the ground, the concrete in the ground, the wire set up, the top rails on. Obviously the caps just set on there. You can get a mallet and hammer them on, or you can just twist them on if you got enough grip strength. We've got getting the tension bands and bars and the end caps and everything set up. We've went over getting everything tensioned. You should be ready enough to at least get a section of fence put up. And once you get that figured out or figured out how to do, you can do the rest of it. Now that we've covered all that, I'll go ahead and show you this gate. As you can tell, that is not a standard chain link gate. I called around, that's a 12-foot wide, you know, gate. And I called around, you have to get this custom made in black. I couldn't find anything over a 4-foot gate in my area, and it was galvanized only. Come to find out, you have to get those custom made, like a local welder. As you can, if you watched any of my other videos, you know I know how to weld and everything, but that takes some time. And then when you go to weld on this black vinyl, you're gonna end up melting some of it off. You're gonna deal with painting it and all this. So what I decided to do, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you the price. So I called around and got some quotes from local welders that does fences and things like this. And in my area, for a 12-foot long or 12-foot wide, 5-foot tall black chain link gate, they wanted $800 to $1,000. I said, wow, I've already got, you know, the fencing, because I had planned out to buy this anyway, the fencing. So I mean, that would just be an open void. So I've already got that. I've already bought that, right? All I had to do was buy 4 clamps and a gate and a 6x6. What I did was go to Tractor Supply, or you can go to Menards, I think is what some people have. I don't know. We have a Tractor Supply. And you see that clamp right there fits perfectly on this gate. You can go grab and size everything up because there's different size gates. I got the heavy duty gate. This is for like bulls. Not that I'm have any bulls, but stronger is better, especially for like $20. But I went and got those 4 clamps that fits this diameter tubing. And you can see it's got a bolt going through it that goes to this clamp. So what I did was buy extra of these, and I just bolted this to that. Okay, so that got me this set up. And from there, I could build a fence, right? Is this making sense so far? It should be. This gate right here, remember before I told you $800 to $1,000, I paid $179 for this heavy duty gate. And I can guarantee you that this gate is way stronger than a chain link gate. It's very strong. I mean, I put these up for people before, and I actually know a guy that hit one with a truck and it tore his bumper up really bad, and then only put a little ding in the gate. So anyways, the strong gate, stronger than a chain link gate. So all I had to do was buy 4 of these clamps. I did one there, and on this side, there and there. Put those clamps on, put these clamps and posts on. Then I built my fence as we went over in the video earlier. This is an 8-foot 6x6. This is 5 feet. I buried this thing 3 foot in the ground. I had a little bit of a gap here because of the hole I dug. I left a little section here so I'd be able to drive this in the ground. and then I just filled it in with concrete. I think that's 4 80-pound bags of concrete. So this thing definitely not going anywhere. I had to use an auger bit to drill through here, drill through there. Another cool thing about this gate is to get it perfectly level, all I got to do is turn these nuts, and I can adjust the level of the gate. And as you can see, there's less of a gap there than that. My wife asked me about that. The reason I had to do that is because this gate is perfectly level. If you hang a level on it, it's dead perfect. But to keep up with the contour of my fence, see how it dips. My backyard's kind of on a slope, but to keep with the contour of that, I did that, and it works out just perfect. I think it ended up probably being better because it's obviously a stronger gate, and if I'd have bought a gate, it would have been level and not followed the contour like this is. So that's what I did with that. And it was red, and let me tell you this too. So the red one, the red gate, this was $179.99, right? For the black one, it was like $400 or something. It was almost $400. And I called Tractor Supply and asked, and the lady says, I already know what you're about to ask. When I started, she said, I don't know why the black one costs more. It makes no sense to me, but I get asked this question multiple times a week. So I just bought the red one and painted it black. It took me like 2 hours or something to do 2 coats, and it looks great. As far as tools go, I used an impact driver with like a socket adapter, but you don't have to use that. You can use a ratchet. The impact was a heck of a lot faster, but I used a ratchet on everything to check the tension to make sure the tension was right, because I didn't want to over tighten anything and strip the bolts out. So I used that. I used this set of Linemans Pliers for bending the wire that we were talking about earlier. I used this to cut the wire close if I couldn't cut it close enough. These are just side cutters, dikes, whatever you want to call them. And I used these Needlenose Pliers to, you see how a lot of Needlenose Pliers are smooth, but you see how that's serrated? These grab really good if you're trying to pull something. These are mainly for like electricians, but I use these. All of these are Klein. Klein's really good stuff. And I also ordered this set. I didn't have these because I've never done this before, but these are Hog Ring Pliers. They have a groove. See that groove right there? The hog ring actually sets into it, and that spring holds it together. So all you got to do is go up to the tension wire and squeeze it, and it perfectly goes around. And the spring has tension, so you can just pop another hog ring in and then go down through your fence like that and just get everything. Other than this, I used the, like I said, the auger. I used the gas-powered hammer. I used a set of bolt cutters to cut the rebar when I was driving for the mason salon. Used a knife. Can't really think of anything else. Bolt cutters to cut that, knife, ton of stuff. I used a pencil, used tape measures. I did use a porta band as well. If you don't have a porta band or want to buy one, you can use a hacksaw for cutting like really close to the house, or cutting the, if you hammer, even if you use the little cap, if you're using a sledgehammer, when you're hammering the tops of those, they do get kind of screwed up. So you can use like a hacksaw or a porta band, like I said, to cut off the top just a little bit, just to make sure that it's not all warped up and dinged up. Because if not, your caps are not going to slot on right. I set all my caps on, but I haven't went through with I was going to go up through there with a rubber mallet, just tap them all on, and that'll probably be fine. If I can't, I'll just cut them level with the porta band. So pretty sure that's all I used. I'm really trying to think to make sure you get all the tools you need, or have the tools you need, and don't run into any surprises. An adjustable wrench for the gate if you decide to go that route. I also use the impact driver for the screws to hold the wood together. But if you're cutting with saws and all that, I'm assuming you got something to drive screws. I think that's everything. It'll be really close if not. I bet you're wondering, why didn't he film the entire building process? Well, I've never built a full chain link fence before, and I really didn't know what to expect. I knew I could do it, but didn't want to be explaining how to do something without me first knowing beforehand. Once I got everything figured out, this really wasn't hard at all. I knew this video would be really long and didn't want to make it even longer by showing me doing all the work. I wanted you to be able to see the finished product and how I got here. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. I really hope that it helps you if you're planning on building a chain link fence. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll get back with you to the best of my knowledge. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one.